Grace sat on the edge of her bed, her Bible open to the book of Psalms. The early morning sun streamed through the window, casting a soft glow on her modest apartment. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer. Lord, I don't just want a husband, I want your choice for me. A man after your own heart. Give me patience as I wait, and wisdom to know your will. At 28, Grace had grown accustomed to the questions and whispers from friends and family. Why wasn't she married yet? Her younger sister had already tied the knot, and many of her church friends were starting families. You're too picky, her best friend Esther often said. No one is perfect, Grace. But Grace wasn't looking for perfection, just a man whose love for God surpassed all else. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon when Grace first met Daniel. She had just finished her shift at the local library and was walking briskly to the bus stop, clutching her umbrella. The rain poured relentlessly, turning the streets into rivers. As she reached the bus shelter, a sleek black car splashed through a puddle, sending muddy water flying onto her skirt. Grace gasped, her umbrella almost slipping from her hand. The car came to an abrupt stop, and out stepped a man in a tailored suit, holding an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry about that, he said, approaching her. His voice was deep, with a hint of charm. Grace glared at him, brushing mud off her skirt. You should drive more carefully. I know. It's my fault, the man said, raising his hands in surrender. Please let me make it up to you. Can I give you a ride? No, thank you, Grace replied curtly. She had no intention of getting into a stranger's car, especially one as arrogant-looking as him. Come on, I insist, he pressed, flashing a confident smile. I promise I'm not a serial killer. Not interested, Grace said, turning her back to him. Daniel chuckled, more amused than offended. Suit yourself. He returned to his car and drove off, leaving Grace muttering under her breath. The next Sunday, Grace attended her church's community outreach program, where volunteers distributed food and clothing to the less fortunate. She was sorting clothes in the church hall when she heard a familiar voice. Well, if it isn't Miss Madiscat. She turned sharply to see Daniel standing at the doorway, dressed casually but still exuding the same self-assured air. What are you doing here? She asked, narrowing her eyes. I could ask you the same, he said, smirking. Then, noticing her confusion, he added, I'm here with my friend. He roped me into volunteering today. Grace sighed. So he wasn't here out of genuine faith, she thought. Daniel, sensing her disapproval, raised an eyebrow. Relax, I'm not here to steal from the donation box. Grace ignored him and returned to her work, determined not to let him distract her. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began showing up at more church events. He claimed his friend needed the extra help, but Grace suspected otherwise. His laid-back attitude and worldly charm grated on her nerves. One evening, during Bible study, he made a comment that made her blood boil. So, do you really believe everything in this book? He asked, holding up a Bible. Yes, Grace replied firmly. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's got great stories, he said with a smirk. But some of it seems outdated. Grace's patience snapped. If you don't take God's word seriously, why are you even here? The room fell silent, and Daniel's smile faltered. He shrugged. Maybe I'm trying to understand what people like you see in it. Despite her annoyance with Daniel, Grace couldn't deny that he intrigued her. He was confident, intelligent, and surprisingly generous during outreach events. She began to notice small gestures, the way he handed food to the homeless with genuine warmth, or how he stayed late to clean up without being asked. One evening, after a particularly busy event, Grace found herself alone with Daniel in the church hall. You surprise me, she admitted, breaking the silence. Why? Because I don't fit your idea of a church guy, he teased. She hesitated. Something like that. You don't seem serious about faith. Daniel's expression grew thoughtful. You're right. I'm not. But seeing how much it means to you, it makes me curious. I want to understand. Grace looked at him, her heart softening. For the first time, she saw a glimpse of vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. Daniel began attending church more regularly, not just for the events, but for the sermons. He started asking Grace questions about her faith, sometimes challenging her, other times genuinely seeking answers. One day, he confessed to her, I've lived my life chasing success, but it's never been enough. Meeting you, it's made me realize I'm missing something. Grace's heart raced, but she reminded herself to tread carefully. She prayed constantly, asking God for guidance. Was Daniel truly changing, or was this just another game to him? Over time, Daniel's transformation became evident. He joined a men's Bible study group, sought mentorship from the pastor, and even began volunteering without his friends' prompting. His relationship with Grace deepened, though she remained cautious. One evening, after a church service, Daniel took Grace aside. I don't know what the future holds, he said, his voice steady, but I know one thing, I want to follow God. And I want you to be part of that journey. Tears filled Grace's eyes. She had spent years waiting for a man who loved God more than anything, and now, she felt like her prayers were being answered. Their courtship wasn't without challenges. Grace faced skepticism from her church community, and Daniel struggled with old habits and doubts. But through prayer, perseverance, and mutual support, their love grew stronger. When Daniel proposed a year later, he knelt before her with a simple gold ring and said, Grace, you taught me what it means to truly love, not just you, but God. Will you marry me? Through tears of joy, Grace said yes. On their wedding day, as they stood before the altar, Grace marveled at how far they had come. Their journey had been anything but ordinary, but it was a testament to the power of faith, patience, and God's grace. Their love wasn't perfect, but it was sanctified, a union built on a foundation of godliness, humility, and redemption. Watch out for part 2, we are gonna see how the marriage life of Daniel and Grace turned out.